Hi, I'm sharing this today, this letter that's been published throughout the media and stuff about the EU sleepwalking into oblivion, warns George Soros. And here the non-independent has published it, rather tongue-in-cheek, I might add. But a lot of the stuff that he's saying is absolutely correct. That, the European Union was founded on some really good principles, and they've been whittled away, and it is going to be terrible if we um, allow the EU to fall victim to this present new world order with, let's face it, a Zionist Israeli leader at the helm. Now, a lot of people are, have condemned George Soros because he's a billionaire that is described as a philanthropist because he has funded various initiatives to help people. He's been criticised on both sides. He's criticised by the so-called left, that is meddling, and he's been criticised by the right, uh, again as meddling. All the Trump supporters hate him, and as I say, on the other side, the left, they also hate him. It seems he's attracted negative comments from just about everybody. He's the focus of right-wing conspiracy theories and anti-Semitic hate. And a lot of people, they don't like him because he's Jewish. They don't like him because he's a billionaire. So I looked into George Soros to see what was all the fuss about. Like, is this guy some sort of evil entity operating covertly? Like a form of covert opposition. Okay, which is basically what people on both sides have been saying. And what I discovered was a guy, yes, he's followed the way of this world. He's been very successful. He's made lots of billions, and at some point, obviously, he's woken out of the spell that he'd lived under, and decided that no, actually, I was wrong. All of that was wrong. I'm going to give some of my money back. I'm going to use my wealth to try and redress the imbalance, okay, to bring some balance. And so that's what he's been doing. Now, because he's so wealthy, then obviously the powers of the New World Order, the multi-billionaires who stand with the Zionists and absolutely against whatever Soros has been trying to do, feel that he is a serious threat. So they set the attack dogs on them. You're dealing with narcissists, aren't you? That's what they are, narcissists. Either outright open narcissists or covert narcissists. That's who the world is generally governed by today. They're the powers that are governing this world. And anybody who knows anything about narcissism and the way they operate, especially when threatened, because you're exposing the narcissistic wound by suggesting that they could be wrong in any way whatsoever, you see. So then they set their flying monkeys, don't they? And they've got the money to do it. They've got the money to invest in, spend on creating an organisation like Cambridge Analytica, allowing it to spread it, infect its filth onto the internet and in the social forums like Facebook and Twitter, and showing, oh, this is what Muslims do, Muslims are evil, and then also even Jews, because let's face it, the biggest threat to these alleged Zionists, because I've repeatedly stated over and over again, look, you Zionists, you want to be a Zionist? Go and learn how to be a Zionist by studying Rastafarianism and get real, okay? Because they're the true Zionists, Rastafarians. They don't call themselves Zionists, but They are true Zionists, you see. Now, those Zionists absolutely hate Jews, the true Jews who refuse to support this philosophy that is vamping, usurping Judaic faith in exactly the same way that Rome of antiquity usurped Jesus and turned him into a state organised religion, and to furthering rebuilding the Roman Empire under the auspices of Christianity, and even obliterating the the, the true reflections, representations of Jesus that took place in Britain with our Celtic Christianity, you see. Oh, that had to be completely obliterated because it included women in the church, you see. No, according to Rome, women have no rights whatsoever. And so that was it, in 665, after the Whitby Synod began the beginning of the end for over 1,000 years of rights for women in Britain. Rights that up till then, British women, apart from when we were under Roman subjugation, there were equal rights. Women owned property, they owned land, they chose who they got married to, they divorced when they wanted. All of the things, the alleged rights that women were granted today, women already had. They had a respect for their femininity, an equal respect for their femininity, as they had an equal respect for a man's masculinity. Children in Celtic Christianity, and in Druid societies, were valued as, well, they were given the same social respect, really, as given to a priest. They were considered holy and innocent children, but not under Roman Christianity. Children were all born in original sin and needed a regular beating, you see. So, and we're still living with that same consciousness with new technology. That's the only thing that's changed, really, new technology. There were the rights that men like my grandfather gave their lives for, that were gained after World War II, and 70 years have passed. The last of those soldiers, war heroes, are dead. Bang, in comes the New World Order. Sorry, no socio-capitalism for Britain. It was nothing short of Soviet communism. Was it really? I grew up in a Britain where there were still rich and poor people. Rich people still owned their big houses. They still had their businesses. They still had their private pensions and paid for their private health care. But, when my grandma got ill, she could go to hospital and get treated. When my sister was born with the hole in the heart, she had treatment. Even though we were poor, we still had health care. We still had education. We still had a home. We still had social security. We still had jobs and a living wage to some degree. But the Tories constantly stamping it out, stirring up trouble, and until eventually, bang, in comes Thatcher, and it's all gone, and we're now full steam ahead to corporate communism, because that's what it is. As I've stated in my other video, arresting the New World Order, and understand for what it is. We're talking about global communism run by the corporation. That is what is being rolled out, you see. Now, George Soros, I'm not saying, he's a perfect guy and he's got all the answers. He has admitted himself he hasn't got all the answers. He said, I'm learning. He's being guided by how many people around him, what kind of people hang around billionaires. And yeah, if they say a certain thing, yeah, they'll get some money out of him for their project. That's not to say that actually the projects that they have implemented have always been successful, that actually they've always done anything of real value. Sometimes people with money, they can be persuaded to put their money into something, but only to discover that no, these people are covert operatives actually working for the other side. and there to make things worse. But that isn't his fault because he's trying. He's trying, isn't it? He's trying to do something good with his money. And because of that, he's under heavy, heavy, heavy attack. You know, he's over 80 years old. And he's getting nothing but media attack, the alternative media attack, everybody condemning Soros, even David Icke. Oh, gosh, I can't even talk. You know, this guy David Icke claiming that he's had this spiritual experience and he understands Jesus and is there, you know, is there supporting Trump? Is there supporting Trump and speaking against George Soros? Does it make any sense? Does it make any sense? No, it doesn't. But I agree with George Soros. Like I say, I'm not saying he's a perfect guy, he's a god, he's got all the answers. He's a human being who is has tried to do something good on this planet. He's tried to do something good with his money. He's tried to be an example to all the billionaires that, look, why have you got all this money? What for? What is the point of you having this money when our planet, you know, the planet, the people, life is desperate, is starving, is impoverished, is at risk? What is the point of your money? What, just so you can all buy your own little personal heavens in hell? A hell that you're going to have to spend ever more sums of money to keep at bay while you live in your gated communities with your surrounded by your armies. How long before your armies are pointing the guns at your throats? In the event of total disaster, you're all going to run off, scurry away to your little bunkers. Seriously. I tell you, I would not like to be in a bunker with that set of ego-tripping narcissists. Not for 1 minute. What? Bereft of the people to look down on and stamp on. They'll be looking down, they'll be stamping on each other before long. I mean, those bunkers are nothing more than tombs, except unlike the Pharaoh, they'll be going into them before they're dead. They will live in their tombs before they die in them. But the agendas that they have are insane. You know, this idea of depopulation, which is top of the agenda, is depopulation. They've always throughout history, the rich have always been worried about, there's too many people. Yeah, it's all right for there to be people for them to make the money off, but once they've made all the money, and oh no, but there's all these people that are unhappy. They're unhappy with us. They resent us. Oh, I wonder why. I wonder why they resent. But no, there are enough people on this planet right now to clean up the filth and the mess that these very wealthy people have actually created. You see, because they cannot do it. They don't want to do it. They just want to carry on polluting. They want to carry on polluting. They want to eradicate the EU's environmental protection laws. They want to eradicate the EU's health and safety laws. That, sorry, Monsanto, your stuff is not allowed in our food. You see. They want to eradicate human rights. They want to eradicate workers' rights. They want to get back to Victorian Britain. Victorian Britain. Now, who was it at the time? What nation, or rather collection of nations, because that's what the Germanic Empire was, an association. It was like a mini EU in the middle of Europe. They totally put Britain to shame, because Britain, during the process of its industrialisation, had not only robbed the common land off the workers, that was the workers' social security that they grew their own food on. They didn't have to go and work for somebody to eat. Okay? They had their own common lands to build their own little houses on, to farm, to grow their food, keep their livestock, and then when they were needed, they'd go and work on the landlords' farms and harvest the wheat and stuff like that, get paid a bit of money or produce or whatever. People largely lived off barter. Money was for rich people. Rich people lived off money. Everybody had their own cottage industries. The people made their own shoes. They wove their own cloth, spun their own yarn, wove the cloth, created their pots. There was the smith, the ironsmith, creating metal items that were needed, from gardening implements, you name it, all made by the people in their own communities. So what did Britain's private industrial revolution amount to? Decimating, taking away the land off the people, even robbing them of their rights to hunt and forage and fish. Okay, that was it. Poaching laws came in. Literally, people hung for stealing a rabbit. Okay, apparently, suddenly, hunting a rabbit, that was punishable by death. Yes. Over 2 million people, by the time they'd done, over 2 million British people were dead and or destitute. The orphanages were packed with children, and that is why it was children who manned the first factories in Britain, because there weren't enough adults, and of the ones that were there, they just weren't fit to be able to do it, to work those machines. So they had children. They had the children to do it. Put the yoke on the children, was it? Pitt the Younger said. Yes. So that was Britain's industrial revolution. That's what it was based on. And throughout the Victorian period, Britain, it was 20% of the country were living from either in relative comfort to superb luxury. 80% of the population were on varying levels of poverty, either just above, on or below the poverty line. 80%. And that is what this New World Order will get back to in every single nation. That is how it is going to be, you see. And that is exactly what George Soros really is warning against. Because you're talking about criminals. That is what they are. They are criminals. It's a criminal consciousness. It always has been. It always will be. And as I've explained in my video that I'll leave below, Arresting the New World Order, is that, you know, while they're keeping us fighting between the socialist and the capitalist, and actually relying on the capitalists to crush the socialists for the New World Order, too late will the capitalists realise that no, actually what you were crushing was your only chance of defence against the very communism that you thought the socialists were going to impose. But no, it is your corporate cronies who you are all serving as capitalists, individual capitalists, and feeding on the hate that you've been fed by the corporations through their covert alternative news medias, their controlled oppositions, okay, that you have been crushing the only hope and the only chance you had of avoiding being totally governed by a communist philosophy. But that's what, you know, evil people do. They deceive the deceiver. You know, Lucifer isn't called the deceiver for no reason. And there's nobody more deceived than the people who presently are supporting the agendas, the Luciferian agendas. But they don't recognise them as Luciferian agendas, because they've been conditioned, trained, programmed to believe that socialism is the enemy. And socialists are conditioned by the actions of capitalists and their corporate cronies as the enemy. So, you know, you two fighting, good, that's all right, you know, because while the household is warring, the thieves come in and steal. And then the capitalists turn around and find, well, actually, you haven't got a business anymore. The corporation owns your business. No, you haven't got any social housing anymore. The corporation owns your social housing. And they slip it in under the titles, oh, we'll call it this, we'll call it that, you know. And Venezuela, as I've stated before, epitomises the total hypocrisy of what's going on in this world. That the nations of Europe will stand by Trump, the Trump administration, and their evil designs on Venezuela now, and even stand against democracy itself. And that they will sit there and blatantly state lie after lie after lie on the BBC, Channel 4. You can see them all. They are all there, out in the open for what they are now, aren't they? Whores, corporate whores, the lot of them. They're not a free media, they're not an independent media. They're all there, spinning out the narrative. Yeah, you know, Juan Guaido, he's the president, the interim president of Venezuela, because, you know, Venezuela, it's in a state of chaos. And when you look at the situation past their rhetoric, and what do you find? You find a nation of people that is simply trying to provide for itself within the framework of a socio-capitalist ideology, a socio-capitalist politic. And you see, this is where the juxtaposition again comes in, because, you know, I talked about Britain and how our industrial revolution was achieved, okay, through basically robbing and stripping the workforce of their powers and rights and their property. Well, Germany entered the industrial revolution a little bit later, and right from the start, German factories were largely state-controlled, and the German governments took steps to ensure that the factories would not compete with the cottage industry workforce. The German people weren't robbed of their common lands. Their cottage industries flourished and were prized throughout the world because of the perfection of their craftworks. Okay? And the German industries went from strength to strength to strength, because it wasn't capitalist control, they were state control. So, you know, money was poured in to actually developing. They were developing the most superb technology within the framework of their socio-capitalist society. They never called it a socio-capitalist society, but that is what it actually was, wasn't it? And by the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, Germany was flourishing. Germany had nothing like the levels of destitution and poverty as was happening in Britain. Britain was a disgrace. The condition of the people of Britain was a disgrace. That was why after World War I, all these social things started coming into being. The reforms, the social changes that were needed, because, oh my gosh, we need to produce a healthier workforce, you know, healthier soldiers. Half the British men had rickets. That's why they were relying on the youth. You know, they were hard pushed to find a healthy army even. But by comparison, the German soldiers were tall, they were strong, they were healthy. Yeah, because the German army, their men hadn't had to survive through nearly 200 years of poverty and oppression by their own government. And that was what it was all about. And that was why Germany had to be pushed into becoming an enemy, had to be shown to be dangerous and deadly, because they brought shame. They brought shame to Britain, that at that time was in the position that America is today. Britain was the empire on which the sun never set, and Britain had been brought to shame in the face of the Germanic collectives. The mini EU inside the EU was seen as a threat. So, we saw how they bastardised it all, and how they, until eventually got their Hitler, that was also funded by the same Zionists that are controlling Israel today, that same philosophy, and, feeding historically on the plight of Jewish people. We know it all, there's no going back, there's no going back. And George Soros, what is important about George Soros? That is a Jew, or that is a human being. That he is a rich man, or that is a human being. You see, that is what is important. The Hungarian-born US citizen warned anti-European forces will enjoy a competitive advantage in May's EU Parliament elections, in which Eurosceptic parties have been tipped to win enough seats to paralyse the bloc. Anti-European sentiment. Yeah, of course, the Zionists don't like a united Europe. They don't like unions. The only union that's allowed on this planet are those who are united with Zionists. So, are you an Arab? Are you an Arab leader violating human rights against your own people and people of other nations? Welcome to the Zionist club. Are you a Venezuela leader prepared to sell your own country out and slam the majority of your population back into the realms of abject poverty? Welcome to the club. Welcome to our union. It is a union. It is a union of Luciferians, because that's who they support. Look, there's no getting away from it. Luciferian law. Might equals right to do as thy will. I am strong and mighty, so I will decide who is president of your country, Venezuela, because I don't like your president at the moment, because I don't want to go through him to buy your oil. I don't want to make him wealthy enough to establish a successful socio-capitalist society in Venezuela, and thereby bring shame to America that, look, it's got its private businesses, it's got its social services going on. Look, the people are doing well. Look, they've got a health service. American people might start wanting that. You might lose your strict divides between socialism and capitalism. People might suddenly see through that. America at the moment is so backward that they're still hung up on the colour of a man's skin. It seems to me that people value their hatred as much as they value their gold, isn't it? They value that hatred, they nurse it, they feed it every day like a little baby. Oh, we're going to find some hatred. Let me get online and find some bad things that Muslims have done. Oh, let me get online and find some bad things that Jews have done. Oh, let me get online and find some bad things that Christians have done. But the bad things that Zionists are doing, and all their Luciferian cohorts, well, they're there open for all to see, aren't they? But they'll just lie. They'll just get on BBC News and lie, and the BBC News reporter will not challenge them. Will the BBC News ever talk to me? No, the BBC isn't interested in what I've got to say. Will they talk to George Soros? No. So, I say thank you, George Soros, and I've said it before, and I don't care who wants to stand against it. Oh, he's a Jew, he's this, he's that. Okay, that man, hats off to him. He's a billionaire who's tried to do the right thing. Okay, and like I say, I'm not saying he's always been successful or that he's a godlike character who everything he does that is right. I respect the man. He actually says, I'm trying. I haven't got all the answers. I don't know. He's like the rest of us, trying to find our way. And as I've repeatedly explained, I am a light, sharing brightness. Okay, as this universe decided to share it with me personally for some reason, but here I am sharing it, and I'm standing by George Soros because what he's saying is exactly right. That is exactly this Luciferian cult does want to break down the EU. They've already halfway succeeded by the politicians that are presently governing in most of the nations, all of them corporate cronies, and all of them feeling quite limited in terms of the EU regulations, and behind it all there's a solid ground force of people who will stand up the moment, like they're doing in France. They're getting a taste of what's been going on in Britain for the last couple of decades, and France is uprising against it. If they tried that in Denmark, if they tried in Denmark making people work for the benefits and selling their health service off to American insurance, health insurance corporations, seriously, yeah, they would be dealing with an Iceland. So the only way it is to break up the EU, like before, they've conspired to break up the Germanic unions of the Germanic states. They broke that up, they bastardised it, they attacked it, they created trouble, and then did exactly what was done to Venezuela, put huge sanctions on Germany until the point you get a Hitler. And that's exactly what they've done to Venezuela today. They've put huge sanctions on Venezuela, and now they're going to get their Hitler once again, as we've witnessed time and time again every time America has meddled in Latin American countries. And again, they want to destroy the union that's happening in South America, don't they, of the socio-capitalist countries. This is what is going on, and I know it's been a bit of a long video, but look, people need to hear this. We need to get with sense and sanity, and I don't care where you go, what you judge me, you can say what you like about me. At the end of the day, what is coming out of my mouth is sense and sanity, balance and harmony, a way forward, unity, unite people. Everybody on the ground who's standing against each other. Oh, because I don't like you because you're a Jew. I don't like you because you're a Muslim. I don't like you because you're a Christian. I don't like you because you're white. I don't like you because you're black. I don't like. Forget it. You are serving the enemy. Understand that. We each reach out and find the humanity within all of us. And I speak as somebody, I have been judged and oppressed and attacked even by my own family. So, don't tell me about, how Jews are a threat to me. Don't come to me with your racism about, look, the caravan's coming over the border. When your own family pose a danger to you in this society because people are so messed up. When members of your own community will walk into a school and shoot children because your psychology is so messed up, because you are not united, because you are not living according to sense and sanity, because you are not living like a human being, because you are living within the realms of the antiquated rhetoric that has programmed you from birth, and it is time to break out of it. And the only way to break out of it, like I say, you're never going to fight against it. You stand together and unite people. Unite. Unite in the face of insanity. Unite in your sanity. Unite in your humanity. In our humanity. And yes, Yes, that is then we are aligning with the universal intelligence that created us. And we will then be beneficiaries of universal law that is there for our benefit, not as a form of oppression in order to keep a few insane despots in power so they can impose their new world order on us. And most of it on the pretext that, that's the first thing on the George's Guidestones, isn't it? That is their first objective: maintain a human population of under 500 million. Sorry, no, the human population doesn't need maintaining. The human population will maintain itself, as has been proven in every society that is operating on some level of socio-capitalism, where women have rights and there is some level of social care and provision. Oh, actually, what's happened? Birth rates have dropped. Oh, wow. Isn't that amazing? When you actually look after people, you don't end up with huge, crazy imbalances. When women actually have rights of choice, you don't end up with population explosions. In every nation where the populations are rising, the birth rate's rising, well, you want to look at the mortality rate. But they're all nations where women have no rights and no choice. So what are you going to get? Oh wow, you got a population explosion. You took rights of autonomy and choice away from the women. And then you moan about a population explosion. So that means we've got to have the new world order come in and start poisoning us with all their products and 5G and the crap that they put in our food, the crap that they're spewing into the ocean, and nuclear power. Destroyed our Pacific Ocean. It's destroying it. It's killing it. It's killing the Pacific Ocean. Can't you get your head around that? That your children, maybe to their own children, will be saying, oh yeah, well, when I was little there used to be dolphins. The sea used to be full of life. Instead we'll be witnessing it dead, washed up on the shores. And everyone going, oh, I wonder why, like they're doing now when the seals turn up starving in California. Oh, why is this happening? Why is it happening? Come on, what, all covered in scars and cuts and sores? It's absolutely, ignorance is evil and silence is evil, and people who refuse to accept sense and sanity, I'm sorry, you're serving evil. That is how it is, because sense and sanity, that is the difference between survival and extinction. You see, if we can't live by sense and sanity, we are doomed as a species. And don't say that you haven't been warned. Okay, humanity, you have been warned time and time again. You know what you need to do. Nobody's asking people to make massive, drastic changes in their lives, but you can change your diet. You can alter your opinions and your judgments. You can throw the baggage out. Okay? So, again, thank you, George Soros, for being there. And all the people like George Soros who are in positions of wealth and power, who are at least trying to help and assist humanity. Thank you. And thank you to all the people on the ground. Top respect to every one of you that are standing up for your rights.